Welcome to lab number 6 of the AZ-204 course. What we're going to do here is we're going to work with OIDC or OpenID Connect for end user authentication. All right, so we're here in our lab environment. And the first thing we want to do is go over to Entra and then register an application. So here is our Entra ID. Go to Manage, and we should have app registrations. And then let's register an app. Let's call it Web App OIDC. And then the accounts that we want to support here are like our internal ones, right? So we want to have this organizational directory only, single tenant. So this way, only people who are working for our organization are going to be able to log in. All right. So good, that's done. We need to copy down a couple of things from here. So we need to have the application ID, copy it over to a new file. Oops. That's that. And then I'm going to need the directory ID. Okay. Just gonna remind myself, this is the app ID, this is the directory ID. Okay. So let's go back over here. And then again, in the Manage section on the left-hand side, we have a subsection called Authentication. And now we can add a platform configuration here. So to do that, we're going to have a web application. The redirect URIs, so it's going to be the local host, right? So we're going to run this on our own machine, on this Windows machine. So the redirect URL, of course, then is going to be the local host specifically, or any other URLs. And then the front channel logout is going to be the same, but just the sign out -OIDC. Okay, cool. Let's configure this. Then we can add the login URI as well. It's going to be the same one with the sign in OIDC. Implicit grant, what we're going to use here is ID tokens. And then save. All right, that's done. So then let's create a user. We'll use Cloud Shell here. Oops. All right. So first, let's connect to the Entra tenant. So it still uses the old name, connect Azure AD. Okay, and then let's look at what our domain name is. Okay, so then let's look at what our domain name is. Going to copy paste the command. Right, so we're getting the tenant detail and then with the domain name for it and put it into this character. That's the domain name. We need to copy paste that as well. And then in the instructions, you should create a new user. Now, in my case, the lab environment already has that extra, right? So I have it right here. So that's not needed, but in your case, you might want to do that if you're following this in your own environment. Just go along with the instruction. And then let's go and get the user principal name from the system. Oops. Yep. So it has to have this name, and the full principal username is this email address, right? I'm going to copy that and then paste it over here as well. All right. This should work. Let's get rid of this. And then next, let's take a look at an app, right? So I'm just going to copy this. I can keep it. And well, maybe I'm going to, yeah. Let's just open. So the instructions are a little bit different, but I'm used to doing it this way. So just opening up Labs 6, starter OIDC client, select that folder. And then in here, I'm going to create my little scrapbook. There we go. With the stuff that we needed to know. And you can see this directory is actually empty. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go into a terminal. And then we're going to create an application. So we're going to do .NET new. The type is going to be an MVC application. For authentication, we're going to use a single organization. That's okay. And then we need the client ID. So that's the application ID, right? This one. All right. And then the tenant ID. That's going to be the directory ID. It's going to be this one. And then the domain name is just going to be this part of the user ID. Could have also taken it down separately. And what else? I think that's it. Okay. All right, cool. We don't really need the object directory here, all of that stuff. I'm just going to delete it. There we go. Okay. So if we go over to the properties folder, then there is this launch settings.json file there. Let's just get rid of this. That we can use for configurations. So a couple of things that we're interested in here is that we want the IIS settings SSL port to be 44321. And then we want in HTTPS, we want the application URL to be localhost 5001. Like this. So this is of course the same port that we set up previously when we created the intro ID file. Okay, so that should be done. Then let's take a look at the project file here. Target framework should be .NET 8. That's cool. Then we have a JWT bearer reference here, and that's supposed to be 8.0. That's correct. So I think that's everything. Then over on the views side, we have some shared views, and here we want to take a look at the login partial. This one. So here, what we need to take a look at is make sure that these links refer to Microsoft Identity as the ASP area. And that is correct. All right. So then let's go to the app settings and then set things up. So the instance is going to be login.microsoft.online.com. That's correct. The domain name is correct. The tenant ID seems to be correct. The client ID seems to be correct as well. And then the callback path for signing in is this /signin OIDC, which we also set up previously with Entra ID. So things seem to be working. I'm going to just get rid of this comment here. It's bothering me. Okay, so then let's go to our actual program. In here, you can see that we have actually imported OpenID Connect and then identity.web and .web.ui. These are being used. And then we're adding authentication here using the OpenID Connect defaults authentication scheme. Then we're going to add Azure AD as the identity web app. Additionally, we're going to add Razor pages over here, and there we're going to add Microsoft Identity UI as well. So that's going to be the visualization that is required. So that seems cool. Let's get rid of that. So let's see if this works or not, right? Everything seemed to be okay. So let's first do a .NET build to see if there are any errors. That worked. So then we need to create some self-signed certificates for the local host. So we can do that using the .NET dev certs command. And basically what we need is just an HTTPS certificate for our local host. Cool. So now we can run our application. All right, it's running. All right, so let's browse to that URL. I'm going to need an in private window for that. And then HTTPS localhost. And it was 5. All right, you can see that it immediately forwards us to the Microsoft Online login service. So now we're going to add that or log in as that user that we added earlier on. It's going to be the AAD lab user on the domain that you're using for this lab. And of course, we need to set the password as well. And sign in. And now you see what kind of permissions our application is requiring. So they want to know our name, picture, username, email address, and then maintain that access to data. All right, pretty basic stuff. And now we're returned back to the localhost URL, right? So this is the client application that we created. You can see that it knows who we are. All right. And then what we can do from here is actually sign out. You can see that the link actually brings us to localhost Microsoft Identity account sign out. And that gets forwarded over to Microsoft login services, basically Entra ID. And here we can sign out of our account. All right, so a fairly basic view of how to implement OIDC-based authentication in your web account using C# or .NET in this case, and then using Entra ID as the identity provider. Thanks a lot for listening to me. Remember to remove the resource group that you used here, and in case you created an Entra ID tenant, then also remove that to not incur any further costs. Hope I see you in the next lab. Till then.